What's going on, Babylonians? It's me, Songs of Rage, back with another Outriders WorldSlayer video to bring to you, and today we're going to be looking over something that we've never done before on the channel, and it's only recently I've managed to get some of the gear to be able to give this a go and just realise how good this actually potentially could be, and that is going to be looking at a firepower Devastator. Now, I understand that these builds have been around for a little while, and obviously the masochists that are some of the players out there in the player base that actually do enjoy going as a firepower Devastator. I've obviously been rocking these for a little while. Now, obviously we've got some really popular people, like Dude with a Blunt that actually runs these, does speed runs with firepower Devastators and actually is able to compete, if not do better than a normally powered versions. But it does take a lot to be able to get set up. It does need some very specific armor pieces, and taking it from there, it's a lot of fun to be able to mess about with. But if you take one step wrong, it can easily go wrong and obviously destroy the rest of your run. So what we're going to do is we're going to cover everything that's currently in the build, and we're just going to take a page from Dude with a Blunt's fair page. So obviously, if you haven't been already, make sure you go head over there, show some love, and drop a subscribe. But obviously, this is the way that I've currently got it run and got it set up, and I'm finding the most success. So before we get into it, make sure you have dropped a like and a subscribe to our channel. It really does help the channel out, and let's get right into it. Alright, so first and foremost, let's take the Outriders Outpost screenshot of what I was actually basing my firepower build off in the first place from Dude with a Blunt's firepower statue build. Now, as you can see from this, obviously it does go into top tree. It does use a double gun and it does have a pump shotgun as a follow-up, but mostly it does actually benefit from the statues set to be able to increase their firepower by 100%, and obviously they're able to grab all these damage multipliers based on the top tree. Now, this is the one that I've currently rocked. This is the only amendment that I've currently got going, and I am still looking for a couple of pieces to be able to make this top turn as best as I possibly could, but as it currently stands, this is the best I've currently got, and it still gets work and gets the job done. So looking at it, we do have obviously we've gone into shotguns to be able to maximize the damage. I like how shotguns kind of work in this game, because if you do have mods on them, they do actually trigger for per pellet, but most of the time with this build, you are actually looking to be able to get into close range situations to be able to obviously deal the damage rather than actually spreading out the mod damage. Now, I did have a bit of success and a bit of luck with using the guillotine on this build, because I found that using Moaning Winds and Radiation Splash, when you're actually using this as a pump shotgun and actually using it as a firepower, it does actually offer a little bit of damage while you're actually reloading, and actually can save you a little bit of trouble in the long time. So because we actually do have 9 rounds in this, by the time you've actually finished emptying your 9 shells, it means that Moaning Winds and Radiation Splash will always be ready and ready to go, and that means that you can actually just obviously finish off a couple of enemies that are nearby you, and in my experience, it helped to be able to speed up a couple of times. But you know, this isn't necessarily, I mean, I'm not a speedrunner by any means in this case, so you know, like I said, this was just purely me using what I had available to me. I have also tried using an Anomaly Effigy to be able to go for that, so to be able to use a Concentration Blast to be able to help weaken or maybe even finish off some enemies, and that's had some good success as well. So if you are looking for that, make sure you actually try one of the pump shotguns as something to be able to fall back on. Now, as I mentioned before, the statue set is the reason why this kind of works. Now, the first thing to be able to take into consideration is the fact that Golem is currently bugged on this. So, while Tremor and Golem do actually both offer you the 100% firepower bonuses, when you actually use Golem and you do get staggered, it's been reported by the community that this is still not fixed, that you actually do lose your 100% firepower bonus. With Tremor, you actually do get to keep it all the way through. So hopefully that's something that PCF and Square Enix have actually got on their radar, and that's something that we actually do get fixed when WorldSlayer drops, because I do think this will help with increasing the viability of what a firepower build can actually get done in this game, and especially with what the PAX tree is actually granting, I think it would be a really nice touch to be able to obviously make it, you know, a more viable choice ready for more of the masses to be able to actually start picking up and giving it a go. So without further ado, let's have a quick look into the PAX tree and find out what actually makes this so good, and obviously he's got everyone so excited to be able to test out. Now, as we've covered before, the top tree is more firepower and the bottom tree is definitely anomaly power, so we definitely don't want to be touching the bottom tree for PAX points this time around. So the first thing that we need to pick up is Hunting Season, where we increase our weapon damage by 15% and our magazine size by 50%. Now, from this, we can, it does mean that actually by using the top tree in the usual skill tree for Devastator, we can actually increase our magazine size by 100% with both this first point and one of the points near the end of the skill tree in the Vanquisher. So because we're getting a 50% boost in the Vanquisher and we're getting 50% boost in Hunting Season, that means we're going to be seeing double the weapon magazine size. So that means that automatic shotguns can go from 20 to 40 rounds, and any that are at 10 can actually go to 20. We can see SMGs all of a sudden hit 100 rounds. It's kind of bonkers, it's kind of nutty, but overall it's definitely something I'm really excited to be able to see, and I think it's really going to help out with those shotgun kind of builds for how much like ammo you actually do tend to go through when it comes to that. When it comes to the next 2 points, though, this one's going to be a bit more personal preference, in my opinion. So what you do have is Harvester at the top, which is increasing your weapon leech by 10%, and additionally increase your weapon leech by 2% for every enemy that's in close range up to 10%. Or alternatively, you can go for Hardened, which increases your damage mitigation by 5%, and additionally increases your damage mitigation by 2% for every enemy in close range up to additional 10%. Now, the reason why this is personal preference is the fact that obviously you can. I think weapon leech is probably going to be the more beneficial, but obviously this is something that you have to be able to make that choice by yourself. I do think that having weapon leech on your like in terms of intrinsically into your class by having this pack tree point means that you're actually able to, just by consistently firing, you're able to keep yourself topped up, keep yourself healthy regardless of how many enemies are nearby. Now, damage mitigation does actually help you out with that, and obviously when you actually have your armor all the way up, so you actually do have 85% damage reduction, obviously it'll get a bit nutty in terms of like how much damage you're actually kind of taking from that side of things. But personally, I would choose Harvester, but obviously I can definitely see an argument for the other side as well. So this is just purely down to you. So obviously, you know, choose the one, and just feel free to have a mess about with when WorldSlayer does actually drop to see which one's definitely more preferable to your playstyle. Next up, we have probably one of the best points that's actually going to be coming with this drop of the pack tree points is going to be Finishing Touch, where increasing your weapon damage by the percentage of ammo missing from your magazine and killing shots replenish 30% of your magazine. So not only does this mean that we're actually going to see scaling, increasing damage on our weapons, which obviously on shotguns is going to be nutty in the first place depending on how low in the magazine we already are, we're also going to be getting a realistic way to be able to start topping up our magazine, which primarily before we had to rely on something like Vampiric Mag or Perpetuum Mobile to be able to keep our magazine topped up that way. So now we actually have a bit more freedom when it comes to our builds. We have something to be able to, we can go for something a bit more damaging. We can actually go for another armor mod in place of Vampiric Mags. It just opens up so much more possibilities towards the firepower, Devastator playstyle, and I'm really happy with how this works out. Now, obviously, in terms of like the increase in our weapon damage by a percentage of the ammo missing from a magazine, I'm interested to see how it kind of works on like maybe like one-shot rifles, or how it's going to work obviously as we start getting closer. Are we actually going to see that 100% weapon damage boost? So if so, then this is actually going to get nutty, and it's probably going to be one of the better kind of firepower builds that's actually currently out there in the game as it currently stands. So Finishing Touch is going to need a little bit of testing to be able to kind of confirm how it kind of works, but overall I think it's going to be probably one of the best points to be able to pick up if you do go firepower, and I'm really excited to be able to actually have a bit of a mess about with that one. Now, when it comes to the next part of the packs trees, it actually kind of opens it up a little bit to personal preference or personal playstyle. So currently, the top tree of this does seem the most intriguing to me, or it does seem the most inviting to be able to give it a go, but I can definitely see arguments for the others as well. So let's have a quick look into the top tree first. So we do have Armor Division, where it increases our armor piercing by a flat 10% and reduces our kinetic skills cooldown by 50% of our armor piercing value. Now, if we have a look into the build that we actually do have running with Blunts and obviously then myself, the only skill that's actually going to get affected by this would be Gravity Leap. Now, Gravity Leap obviously does have a benefit from that capstone to be able to increase our weapon damage by 70%. So overall, having that flat armor piercing means we're going to be doing more damage through enemies' armor, and then on top of that, we're going to be able to activate our capstone for that 70% damage even faster. So technically, this is probably like one of the best all rounds in terms of the current build that we're actually rocking with. And then against devastating odds, damaging at least 3 enemies with a kinetic skill grants you 30% armor piercing for 4 seconds, or damaging less enemies makes your shots critical shots for 4 seconds. So if we actually use our Gravity Leap into a big crowd, that means we're going to be seeing additional armor piercing, which then goes straight back into the previous node to be able to get our cooldown faster for our Gravity Leap. and damaging less enemies. So if we hit 1, 2, or just either 1 or 2 enemies, because at least 3 enemies then gives us armor piercing, it then turns our shots into critical shots, so it means we're going to see a nice little bit of a damage boost based on that as well. It means that we can also potentially go for some kind of mods that actually benefit from critical shots as well, as long as we actually do kind of like target what enemies we actually do land on. So I like how this is kind of like playing into the current build, and it's probably one of the better ones to be able to go for. I definitely think this is probably one like the main one to be able to contend with. So let's have a quick look into the others and then we'll make a decision on that. So we do have Strange Surgeon, where your shots inflict bleed as standard, and killing an enemy afflicted with bleed in close range reduces ongoing cooldown of protection skills by 1 second. Now the only one that we benefit from this for is Golem, but unfortunately Golem being bugged as it currently is, as nice as it is to be able to have Golem back a little bit quicker, we currently also refresh or keep our Golem stocked up by having the what's it called? The one that basically when you get killing blows, when Golem is active, it kind of increases the duration. So we don't necessarily have Golem on cooldown very often. But having your shots inflict bleed is very, very nice, because then that means we can benefit from things like tainted blood. So it's kind of a mixed bag when it comes to that. And then with overwhelming force, when a protection skill is active, you release seismic pulses every 2 seconds that deal damage equal to 20% of your armor. Now I do think this is the best part of this, because for how long we actually do keep Golem up, to be able to deal additional damage every 2 seconds based on our armor, it will then soften up any of the enemies that are nearby, which then makes them a little bit easier for us to be able to kill. So I'll definitely be messing about with this one, but I can't really see this actually overtaking top tree. And then when it actually comes to the middle one, we do have Elitism, where shots on elites reduces incoming damage from elites by 15% and also increases the damage against elites by 15% for 5 seconds. So this could potentially help out with some speedruns if we're having issues with elites in that kind of sense. And then Come On Come All, your kinetic skills remove effect resistance from hit elites, and this has a 10-second cooldown. So only Gravity Elite benefits from this. So it doesn't really help out apart from obviously the elite damage. So we're not really going to see too much in kind of the way of like helping out in terms of like our actual weapon damage or anything like that. It's all from everything before that, and I do think that the top tree is primarily the one that's actually going to help with our weapon damage. So overall, to really summarize everything that we've just covered there, I do think top tree is going to be the more likely for people to actually start gravitating towards, but I could actually see maybe an argument for some bottom tree action, and maybe we'll actually have some experiments ourselves to be able to see how that kind of gets on. Now, if we have a look over into the Ascension Points, I think this is kind of obvious, and obviously this is a firepower build, so we kind of want to go straight into our weapon damage. Now, weapon damage is just a flat damage boost, regardless of what range, whether it be close or long, so therefore I do think that that's the best one to be able to gravitate towards first. Outside of that, I think the best one next would probably be close range damage, but obviously if you are struggling a little bit as you start obviously leveling up through the Ascension and the Apocalypse tiers, then maybe you could put a little bit of survivability into armor, especially if you are going for that bottom tree, to be able to have those seismic impulses that reach around and do damage based on 20% of your armor. Personally, I would stay away from like health or armor. I do already think that the Devastator's got the best kind of healing or being able to stay alive in most of the fights in it as it currently stands anyway, and especially since you've got Gravity Leap to be able to get yourself out of a situation just in case your health does actually start dipping down a little bit. I do think that weapon damage and close range damage is going to be the best shout to be able to go for. You can go straight for Armor Pierce as well, and obviously if you are going top tree, Armor Pierce will actually give you a little bit more of like a cooldown help to be able to help out with your Gravity Leap, as well as obviously helping deal damage through. But I do think weapon damage is going to be the first 10 points for me, and then maybe I'll see if it's armor piercing or close range damage based on that. So that pretty much wraps up everything that we currently know when it comes to firepower devastators. Now, I'm expecting to see something come out, or maybe some additional mods that are going to actually help out this kind of playstyle. I think it's no secret that PCF know that firepower devastators are kind of like one of the weaker builds that are currently in this game, so therefore I can imagine that they've probably made something to really be able to help out with this kind of build. So let's see what the new legendary sets bring. Let's see if there's anything that's kind of helps us out in like any kind of like weapon damage, any kind of like new mods that kind of like make it funky and maybe actually encourage us to be able to swap up our skill set. But as it currently stands, I do think this is going to be a good build. I'm very excited to see what the upgrades from the PAX points and the Ascension tree are going to actually bring to this and make it even more viable than it already is. And yeah, it might even encourage me to stray away from Anomaly Power Devastator altogether if the builds and the buffs are as much as I'm thinking they are. So that pretty much wraps up. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you've learned something useful with ourselves. If you did, make sure you have dropped a like and a subscribe. Let me know in the comment section down below what your thoughts are on the Firepower Devastator. I'm fairly new when it comes to Firepower Devastator, so I'm very interested to hear from some more veteran players that have been playing Firepowers a little bit longer than I have, to be able to obviously let me know your thoughts. What it is that actually makes you excited for what this is actually going to be bringing. Thank you all so much to Babylonian family, as always, for their continued support. It really does help the channel out, and obviously their names will appear at the end of every single one of our videos. But for now, keep yourself safe, keep yourselves well, and I'll see you all on our next video.